Do you notice he's trying to save the electrical vehicle, but not the gas-powered, which is the vehicle that everybody wants? They're going crazy with the electric car, costing us a fortune. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing a car that nobody wants and nobody's ever going to buy.
He's not wrong.
He's
on
wrong.
The purchasing. He's not. Of the 4 million vehicles purchased, 269,000 electric vehicles were sold in the U.S. market. It's up like 2%.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Pete Buttigieg trying and failing to defend the electric vehicle boondoggle coming from the federales. Now, if you don't know what's going on, let me give you a brief recap. Now, the feds are trying to push for the electric vehicle revolution, and they've invested billions of dollars. To get to a specific stat you can really sink your teeth into, they've spent upwards of $8 billion to build charging stations. The goal is 500,000 charging stations in 10 years. Now we're already 4 years in. They've only built 7 or 8 charging stations with that $8 billion or from that $8 billion. Now that's not a very good ratio. You're talking about $1 billion for one charging station. I mean, obviously, it might not be that way once they complete their objective, if they ever get to it. I don't know how they get there right now. If it's been 4 years in office and you've built 8 charging stations, you're talking about 2 per year. So if you go by that same rate, you're going to have 20 at the end of it, not 500,000. All right. And why would you have 500,000 stations when nobody really wants EVs? Now, listen, I know some of you guys love EVs. You have them. And if that's you, then hats off to you. I'm not trying to attack you. If you like it, I love it. You enjoy your Tesla or your Rivian or whatever. Cool. But guess what? The majority of us don't want EVs. The majority of us can't have EVs. If you're living in a cold place or you don't have a house with a charging port in the garage, what are you going to do? Personally, I like my big gas guzzlers. I have a F-150 and a Mustang, and they both got the same V8 5.0 Coyote, naturally aspirated. I don't even want a turbo on my engine, let alone an electric engine. Now, before I get to trigger and go any further, let's get to this clip from Meet the Press, Face the Nation. Same thing, Meet the Press, Face the Nation, one of these Sunday shows. I'll link to the whole thing in the description. And of course, if you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
13% hybrid. Listen to what he said in New Jersey recently.
Do you notice he's trying to save the electrical vehicle, but not the gas-powered, which is the vehicle that everybody wants? They're going crazy with the electric car, costing us a fortune. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing a car that nobody wants and nobody's ever going to buy.
He's not wrong.
He's
on
wrong.
The purchasing. He's not. Of the 4 million vehicles purchased, 269,000 electric vehicles were sold in the U.S. market. It's up like 2%.
2%. So what Trump said is not wrong. Even Margaret Brennan over here on CBS has to admit that what he said is right. Nobody really wants to buy those. Now, when I say nobody, I mean not a lot of people. I know I'm going to get a Tesla Model 3 person in my comments completely triggered to the moon, to the point where they turn fire truck red like this sign right here on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. You're going to get really offended. I understand, but I'm just saying, let's keep on going.
Every single year, more Americans buy EVs than the year. Well, this is really important.
More quickly.
Every single year, more Americans buy EVs than the year prior. There are 2 things that I think are.
But how many more do they buy? Is it going to be enough to supplant the gas powered? And do we even have the infrastructure for that? Let alone the stations are just one thing, but everything has to really come together for EVs to work. We'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later.
Are needed for that to happen even more quickly. One is the price, which is why the Inflation Reduction Act acted to cut the price of an electric vehicle. The second is making sure we have the charging network we need across America. Even though most EV owners will do most of their charging at home.
Pause. Most people don't own a house, sir. A lot of us, like the majority of us, are going to live in an apartment. So when you go past a particular area, residential area, you're going to see more people in apartments than single family homes with a garage. And even if you do live in the house, do you own the house? And if you don't own the house, can you just install a charger in the garage? Can you do that? I'm not really sure you can. All right. And that's if you have a garage. And if you're living in a cold place, EVs are not very efficient. So he may be correct that most people that own EVs also own a home. That's because it's kind of a luxury item for people that already have money, not for the regular, everyday, common man.
The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021. Why?
So 7 or 8. Hold on. Let's rewind that. 7 or 8 out of how much did the taxpayers, did you and I invest into this?
Under your portfolio, and that's the charging stations you mentioned. The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021.
We're talking about $1 billion per charging station so far. Now, will this price per station go down? I mean, maybe, but again, as I said from the jump, you're talking about, we're averaging about, 2 stations a year, maybe at best. So I'm no mathematician, but if the goal is to have 500,000 at the end of 10 years, and we're only producing 2 per year, 2 times 10 is 20. That's 20, not 500,000.
Why isn't that happening more quickly?
So the president's goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. And
you know what, though? To get a gas tank in the ground, all you really got to do is dig a hole and put a tank in the ground, and then you're good. It's not that big of a deal. But EVs may be a little bit different.
But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work, engaging them in the first handful. Again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically built. But again, that's the absolute very, very beginning stages of the construction to come.
But that gets to the point about not being able to make long distance travel possible quickly.
Yeah, here's something else about long distance travel. Now, people, if you're living in a smaller place where you have access to chargers, then maybe it makes sense. You're going from, you taking little trips that's 10 miles, 20 miles or whatever. But I constantly drive Nashville, Atlanta. So you're talking about an hour and a half one way to ATL, about 2.5, maybe 3 to Nashville one way. So if there's not charging stations on the way, I'm kind of out back. And if I live in an apartment, then what am I going to do? Okay, that's enough of that. I'll leave that right there. I'll put it in the box. But there's so much. First of all, he's talking about where the federales are coming in where the private sector can't. But again, they spent $7.5 billion on these charging stations, and they've only built 8 chargers so far from the feds. And think about how many chargers that have been built with the private sector. So as far as Tesla, they have 2,234 stations. All right. And there's 448 in California. Now, we're talking about straight up chargers, not Tesla, just straight up EV chargers. This is a number right here. And it's funny because sometimes they'll give you this number right here. Oh, we have 168,000 ports. Well, okay, that's the outlets at the stations. That's not stations. You only have about 60,000 stations. All right, that's it in the country right now. And a lot of these stations are concentrated in places like California or whatever it is. And they may not be kind of close. And a lot of these stations don't even really work all the time. You go there, trying to plug in your vehicle, it's not working, or it's charging very slow. We don't have the technology right now. It's not there. And the feds, of course, they don't do a good job at all. And they have laws that are being passed to try and make EVs be a thing. But when they make EVs be a thing, they don't think about the consequences. California is now thinking about having a tax per mile you drive because it didn't anticipate losing money because of EVs. Check it out.
With more than 30 million registered passenger vehicles in California, the state says it shells out more than $8 billion a year to maintain the roads those cars drive on. Much of that cost is paid from money collected here at the pump from gas taxes. But because so many Californians now own electric vehicles, the gas tax money is starting to dry up.
Potentially 10 years from now, we'll see a $4.4 billion loss in revenue because of these issues.
Now, let's pause. So they are relying upon gas taxes to take care of the roads, and I thought all the taxes went to the roads. But anyway, they're not getting enough from the gas tax because they told people to go get EVs so they wouldn't use gas because gas is harmful to their environment. So as a result, they're losing this money. Oh, what are we going to do? Now they're trying to say, we're going to charge you 3 cents a mile to drive. I don't know how they're going to enforce this, but that's what they're saying they're going to do. And then the roads are going to be even more damaged and cost even more to repair than they were before they were pushing the EVs, because quiet as kept, EVs weigh 30% more than regular vehicles on average. If you have, on a wide scale, vehicles that weigh 30% more than the cars that were on the road before, you're going to have much more wear and tear. It's going to cause the cost to fix the roads to rise. But as I close, I want to say this. If you have an EV, you like it, that's fine. If you like it, I love it. Nothing against you. But obviously, there's some issues. We have infrastructure problems. We have these weight issues, the batteries. You got reliability problems. I prefer my gas-powered vehicles, 8-cylinder, 5.0 Coyote, naturally aspirated, gas guzzler. That's fine. I'd rather have that than an EV, which is kind of janky, unreliable, expensive. Just not for me. If you like it, cool, but I should be able to have the ability to drive what I want to drive, and our taxpayer money shouldn't be spent on forcing us to go one way or the other. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on this whole EV, quote unquote, phenomenon that we're funding with taxpayer money that's not going very well? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I am not a fan at all. If you want to drive it, that's fine. But I think it shouldn't be the federales trying to get involved, because obviously, as you can see from the 7 or 8 chargers that the feds built with $8 billion, they're not efficient at it. They don't do things very well. And they pretty much just stay out of it and let the private market decide what it wants. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.